I spent all my savings on it. I jumped into it just head on, like, hey, we about to do this HERide thing. I started talking about it on social media. I'm big on like talking about things on social media, not to let everybody else know, but to remind myself, like, because you get those memories that come up and stuff like that. So it's like, girl, last year you said you was going to do this, and
holding yourself accountable.
yeah, my way of holding myself accountable.
We're not really here to become the next giant. That's not an interest of ours whatsoever. We're truly here to connect with women who want to feel heard and prioritized. And that's absolutely what we do. We've heard the concerns around safety. Safety is at the forefront of every conversation that we have.
Welcome to Pinnacle Code, where we spotlight excellence in the culture. I'm your host, Ben Arthur, excited to be joined by entrepreneurs Jillian Anderson on the left of the screen and DeVynne Stark on the right. They are entrepreneurs, partners. They are the co-founders of HERide, a rideshare company based out of Atlanta. They are the first Black-owned and female-friendly rideshare service to secure a contract with Atlanta's International Airport, which of course is one of the largest in the country. So they are trailblazers. They're doing big things. They have been featured in a number of national outlets, platforms like Afrotech, Black Enterprise, and Yahoo. Excited to have them on the show to break down their story. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Ernest.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so like super amped to kind of have this conversation. I guess first question I had for you ladies, people probably listening in are being introduced to you for the first time. I guess what would you say that people need to know about your upbringings to understand, I guess, your entrepreneurial spirit and kind of the passion you have for wanting to empower women and their safety?
I'll start first. My upbringing was I wouldn't say very strict, but my parents took education very seriously. They were very serious about my grades. My doctor told them that I was going to be smart based on the size of my head, and they took that literally. And so they were very just adamant about making sure that I was, even though we were born down south, my dad and my mom are very adamant about me not having a Southern accent, if that makes sense. Like, they were just very like, hey, make sure that your grammar is correct. Make sure that, this and that. Make sure that you know how to dress appropriately. I was in middle school and my dad made me wear business casual clothing every Tuesday and Thursday. What was the reason for that? Don't know, but I didn't know at the time, but it was prepare me to, just be out in the workforce, just knowing that, these are the things that you're going to have to do once you get older. So you need to be comfortable, growing up doing it. So yeah, they were just they were very disciplined. I came up from very disciplined. My parents were disciplinarians.
I see.
Yeah.
And DeVynne, but before you go, what part of the South are you from, Jillian?
Oh, I'm from Athens, Georgia.
Athens. Okay. Got it. Okay. And DeVynne, for you, what is kind of that story like for you in terms of like how we got to where we are with you?
Yeah. So I come from entrepreneurs. My mom she's a cosmetologist and has owned a salon really almost all of my life up until recently when my father retired. So they're like traveling the world, living their best lives. So I've always kind of had an example, I guess, of kind of what that, hard work looks like, dedication, but also like scaling as well too. I'm also a military brat, so we traveled and moved a lot growing up. But my mother was very consistent about building her consumer base. And so I got to watch her, we would move from, let's say, the States, living in, let's say, Georgia, and move to Germany, which is, a whole other country. But she still had the kind of that roadmap that she would apply every single time to be able to scale. So I watched that all throughout my life growing up, which had led me to kind of want to figure out, like, what do I like? What am I passionate about in order to one day start my own business? And so I did that prior to even joining the HERide team. So I had some experience of like what that looked like. And so it was really great, being able to join Jill in what she was building, because I've always been a girl's girl. I am the oldest of 6. I have 4 sisters.
Oh, wow.
it was really just like a match made, and it was perfect, has been perfect in terms of, our skill sets and what we bring to the table. So just been wonderful being able to help build, it from, the ground up essentially, and being right alongside Jill every step of the way.
So DeVynne, I can kind of see how you got into entrepreneurship, right? Because, you had that example of your mom, but for you, Jillian, I'm curious, coming from such what it sounds like a disciplined, background, I'm wondering like how you came into entrepreneurship, because almost in my head, it makes you think, okay, maybe structure, like corporate job, like very much security, safety. Entrepreneurship is like you're taking this huge leap, right? So where did maybe that inspiration come from?
I think that I just have a natural, like, I don't know, it's in me to like rebel. Like, I'm someone who likes to go around. Like, if I could find a way around instead of having to walk straight through, or having to do the hardest way to get there, I'm gonna do it. So
Mm.
I've always, I guess the entrepreneurship came from like, because I was so structured, because I was playing a whole bunch of sports at the time. I didn't really have time to like work those internships, do those different things that actually help you get there.
Mm.
I pretty much had to figure out how to do that stuff on my own. Like, while everybody was working at Burger King and Wendy's, I was at basketball camps. So I didn't have time to make my own money. So when everybody's like coming to school with the new clothes, new shoes, it's like, well, I want new clothes and new shoes. But my mom couldn't afford to get new clothes, all the things that I wanted. So it's like, okay, well, you got to figure out how to get this money, but you can't go to work. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. I sold candy in high school. Um, I was born and raised in the church. I figured out when I was a kid that people was giving me money for making grades at church. So when I got my report card, there were like 500 people that went to our church. I would go around and, say, hey, hi, show them my report card. I didn't have my hand out asking for money, but, a cute kid with a smile, you're going to give them $1, and those dollars added up. So like,
Yeah.
I was someone who always realized like, oh, I can like do this to get money, do that to get money. And carried over to college, started a clothing line in college. I was an RA in college. I taught myself how to cut hair from YouTube. Our RA checks were very low. So I had to be creative on how to, supplement my income, because the parties were still rolling. The trips were still going. It didn't matter. So, yeah, I wanted to have a full experience. I wanted to experience life, fully. And so that's what really led me to entrepreneurship, is because I really wanted to take those trips, buy my own thing, didn't want to depend on anybody.
Okay. That
Yep.
makes sense. And now, DeVynne, I guess we could go back to you. I guess how did you ladies meet? Did you know each other growing up in college? Like how did this kind of come together?
Yeah, so a funny story, Jill was actually my RA. She just talked about being
Oh, okay.
both with you at the unsinkable Albany State University in Albany, Georgia. She was my RA my freshman year coming into Albany State. So I knew of Jill, would talk to her, occasionally, but it wasn't like we were like in the same friend group as well, but, we knew of each other, right? And so, years pass, you graduate, you kind of, everyone goes their own separate way. Everyone's trying to figure out this thing called life, right? And then, one thing led to another that kind of led us back together, to have the conversation about, what it would look like with me coming on board. I think also Jill had kind of seen a little bit of what I was doing with my own business in regards to public relations and some of the, individuals I work with. So there was a skill set that she needed to feel that I was a match for, essentially. And then the opportunity also came up to be a co-founder. So it's been amazing. I think I was mentioning earlier how honestly and truly, like, our skill sets really are a strong match. And I always joke with her and say, like, I feel like, it was like God ordained, essentially, because it took a while to get here, right?
Yeah.
So let her share that story if she wants to jump in there. But yeah, having a co-founder is important. So I'm just grateful to be able to be a support system, but also, like I said, be here to kind of build things up from the ground.
For sure. And you said your skill sets are like a match. Like, well, I guess in what ways do your skill sets complement each other?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jill.
Like, I'm very like abrasive, like, if that makes sense.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
very like, I want things right then and there. if I make like if I think of something, I'll send it to DeVynne or I'll call her right then and there. I'm very sporadic. And DeVynne is actually the exact opposite. So she is very well, she likes to think things through. She likes to explore all the options.
Mm.
She's someone who is more calculated. I'm calculated too, but in a more just a more, I guess, like, I don't know, sporadic. That's the only word I can think to use. Like, I'm very like, I'll think of something and it'll be a good idea. And sometimes I'll like jump the gun and I'll post something, right? I'll post something online and Kevin will hit me and be like, these are the channels you're supposed to do it. We're supposed to do it on the channel, then on your page, then on, and then for so I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my bad. I was like, I just got excited. So like, she keeps me grounded. She has more experience in corporate than I do. And so I bring more of like a entrepreneur from the streets, I guess you can say, like just very raw.
Yeah.
There's a lot of raw energy, a lot of raw passion, and DeVynne is very reserved. And so, but in the same time, she's doing a lot in the background. So DeVynne's just
Mm.
one of those people that like all the press that you were talking about. That's all DeVynne. Like she is someone who she'll send me the link to an article that I didn't even know she pitched for. So it's just like, oh wow.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Okay.
like, yeah, I pitched it, I just, last week I did about 10 to 20, and then like all of them were hit. And I'll be like, Jesus, like, what are you saying to these people? But yeah, so we complement each other very, very well. Um, and then if we have like a difference of opinions, it's not I'm very coachable. So because I have like this big sports background, I'm someone who actually welcomes opinions, other people's opinions. I want to hear what you're thinking because I know what I feel like is right, but I'm always willing to open up my ears and usually Devin's right. So we usually go, we go with who's right.
I think that is like the sports in us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I played professionally. I played, all my entire life up until college.
Mhm.
Had to pick one or the other. I was like, I'm here now at college and I gotta be serious and focused. I definitely think that we both learn and gain from each other. But then outside of, just those things that Jill mentioned, we also have very different backgrounds in terms of what we went to school for, what our, so those skill sets too, bringing them to the table has really allowed us to be knowledgeable going into tech, but also, be able to, like Jill was mentioning, gain visibility that otherwise a new startup tech company would really have a hard time doing.
Yeah.
That experience has been, instrumental in our success, but also the individuals that have been able to find out about us this early on.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about HERide, right? And Jill, I want to go back to you because just from my understanding and from what I read, my research, like it sounds like the concept for it started around 2017. You had played professional basketball. You came back to the States. You moved to Atlanta. You were actually a rideshare driver yourself. You're hearing some of the experiences that women were having, like feeling unsafe and whatnot. But then it sounds like the concept didn't launch until like 2019, 2020 or so. And I guess that's kind of where DeVynne came into the picture. I guess what did it take to get from like that vision, like the ideation of it to the actual execution of it, right? Because I think a lot of people have a lot of ideas for a lot of stuff, but things, it just doesn't happen. Life happens. After a couple months of being kind of motivated, they just kind of go back to doing their job or whatever. So like, how do we get from like the ideation of it to like the execution to what it is now, to being, like I said at the beginning, the first Black owned and female friendly rideshare, out of Atlanta's airport?
Ideation to execution came from just really within and the people that I follow on social media. I follow a lot of people that are just known now, like in terms of just, I followed a lot of influencers that are big now. And I remember when they first started and they were talking about, hey, I'm about to start doing this. We'll see where this goes. But they were consistent at it. And because they were consistent, there was growth. And so I realized that I was like, I can do the same thing. I was like, you've gone through college, you've done all these things, you've completed all these tasks. If you put your mind to something, you can really do it. So when I decided to get the app built and I actually priced it out, got a price quote, it was in my range. It was something that I could afford. and I just went ahead and paid for it. When I paid for the trademark, that's what really made me like, okay, are you gonna waste this money
Yeah,
or
your money's actually in it now.
yeah,
Yeah.
now you're actually in it. So, that's what really motivated me was doing the trademark first. And like, it's like, okay, you're gonna own this name, but is it gonna be worth something? Like, are you gonna actually do something with it? And it kept me going from there. What another thing that really just kept me going is this idea wouldn't go away. It wasn't something that just faded a couple months later. And because I was so proactive on it, as soon as I thought about it, I think that's what really kept it going because I spent all my savings on it. I, jumped into it just head on, like, hey, we about to do this HERide thing. I started talking about it on social media. I'm big on like talking about things on social media, not to let everybody else know, but to remind myself, like, because you get those memories that come up and stuff like that. So it's like, girl, last year you said you was gonna do this, and
Holding yourself accountable.
yeah, my way of holding myself accountable. So that's what I did was just I really focused in and dialed in on like holding myself accountable because I wanted better. I wanted more for myself. And I knew that I could actually get this. I knew that I could do this. I was like, I'm in the right city to get this started. I was Atlanta is a trendsetter.
Yeah.
So I was like, we're gonna get this started. We're gonna get this going in Atlanta. I just have extreme confidence in myself. Um, Maybe I'm delusional. Who knows? But it worked.
So I guess DeVynne, at what point did you come into the picture? And Jill, why was DeVynne like the perfect person for like the phase you were in at the time?
DeVynne didn't come into the picture until 2022. I actually had two other co-founders before she
Oh,
came.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
DeVynne was perfect because she is perfect. And then I'll let her leave from there.
That's sweet.
Yeah, no. So 2022 is when I came in, I believe in February, top of February.
Yeah.
It's crazy because the next month we were going live. Like the app was going live. We were about to start taking like actual rides. So it was like go time.
Mhm.
I've always been that type of person. Like I work really, really good in gray areas. I feel like every job I've ever had, I'm like coming in at the beginning of like a really big project, whether it's like a joint venture or, a brand new national initiative. And, having to figure out like, okay, we need to build this out and rapidly do it. So it was super interesting to be doing it for a startup because there really was no roadmap. Like sometimes when you're in corporate, it's like, okay, well, let's look at, another initiative they did or, and you kind of have some pieces to pull from and then you just build the puzzle around it. There was like no puzzle pieces, no puzzle. We were like really building it from the ground up in terms of like how we wanted to talk about HERide, like how we would answer questions because we knew there would be a subset of people who would just like not rock with us and, didn't want to see us succeed. So it was really a lot of late conversations trying to figure that out, but then also like trying to deal with tech things. And, that this is the first time the app is going live. Like now we're really taking rides, and troubleshooting, wearing, the hats of everything. Right. So, that was interesting. But so coming in 2022, February, like we went live the next month, March. And so like Jill said, I had already knew some of the struggles that she experienced with in regards to a co-founder. And I was like, well, none of these sound like me, so we're going to be great. But, outside of that, really being able to just learn her and, how she works because I was able to see like me, I have a servant heart anyways. I just like to show up for people in my life in that way. And so it was really more so figuring out like, how do I come in and be of service and still allow her to shine, like take some of these pieces away from her because you can't be successful if you're trying to do everything. And so that was like my first lesson I wanted Jill to learn essentially. And I feel like she's done so great, and allowed me to show up for her in that way as a co-founder. So it's like,
For sure. And Jill, I guess going back to you, like what are the biggest challenges in going into a space where Uber and Lyft essentially have like a monopoly on rideshare? And I saw like a video or you talking about how like you had to fight to like in Atlanta's airport to just get HERide like on the signage, right? Because that's a huge part of it as well. Like, what are the daily, weekly, whatever challenges of like getting, the brand awareness, like going up against Uber, Lyft, and just the fact that everyone knows who those are, and people may have a sense of comfort with those, and then there's you guys coming into the picture. So what does that look like? What do those challenges look like?
I love the challenge. It is challenging, but I love the challenge because I'm extremely competitive. And so when I realized that if you're someone that's supposed to be or deemed superior over what I'm doing or who I am, and I realized that I now have your attention, I like that. Like I enjoy that. So when the airport dropped our press release, Lyft actually the day before, they announced the Women Plus Connect feature. When they did that, I knew at that point they knew who we were. Because there's only 4 rideshare companies in Atlanta, and so we're all in an email group together. We got approved at the airport back in July. So they knew about us. They knew about us for, for months. So it was all about the timing of when they were going to let the world know that they were going to drop the feature. I already knew about the feature, all that good stuff. So I enjoy like the challenges that we face are the companies doing stuff like they'll just copy what you're doing. They've been promoting a lot in our area about it. We talked about that we were introducing safety features like rider verification to where we need to verify the customer's identity. Uber and Lyft are now dropping those features this year. So like, because they know that we actually have a chance of capturing market share in the actual space that we're in, they are now actively working against, just copying us. It's really just a big copy thing. That's what these big tech companies do. They're either going to offer to buy you out, or they're just going to copy every single feature that you have in hopes to keep your customer base from converting over their customer base from converting over to you.
Yeah.
And so there's other things that I haven't talked about that they don't know about that we plan on implementing. So it's all good. I love it. It's competitive. Like it means that they're not ignoring us. That's great. That means that, they see us. So that's good.
It sounds like the basketball player in you, like the
Oh, yeah.
competitive nature.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got to bring it because, yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
very competitive person.
For sure. And DeVynne, I guess like we've talked about, like, I guess the challenges you guys have in that regard, but what are the daily joys just in executing this vision and continuing to grow this out? And we talked about how this is, meant to empower women so that they feel safe and whatnot. But what are the daily wins of trying to build this out and executing this vision?
Yeah, the first win, oddly enough, is kind of, I guess, the con that Jill just shared about, them being able to execute faster than we are because they have the finances, the team, they can scale it a lot quicker than we can. Although there are things that we've talked about already publicly, that's a win. And I know Jill is just kind of sharing like how that just amps her up even more. It like sets the team on fire to just go harder. But also outside of that, or like piggybacking off of that idea, is the fact that I always try to remind the group, our team, that it doesn't really matter who is getting praised for the idea. We know where the impact came from, right? Like we truly got out of the situation what we wanted to get out of the situation, whether we're getting a pat on the back or not. Like that's our everyday success is we came here. I think if you go back through our page when Jill was like introducing like who I was to the HERide page when I first came on the team, I was like, I'm a disruptor as well. Like I love to shake the table. That's like my thing. Like I like to come in and kind of shake things up and say like, how can we do this better? Right. I don't care if you're mad about it. We're all going to get the outcome and everyone's going to be happier at the end. Right. So,
Yeah.
that truly is like who I am as a person. And so it's been great being able to say, we talked about this and also we're now in the same rooms as these group of individuals. And although they have the money, can scale it a lot faster. We know where the idea came from. And so that's a win. I think another win is, like you mentioned, Ben, being able to provide an option for women who have felt unheard for a very long time.
Yep.
I know there are things now available like Women Plus Connect that, they're trying to like duplicate what we, are doing. But ultimately, like whatever is meant for us will be meant for us. We're not really here to become the next giant. That's not an interest of ours whatsoever. We're truly here to connect with women who want to feel heard and prioritized. And that's absolutely what we do. We've heard the concerns around safety And so that's why safety is like the biggest pillar of what we do. Now, that doesn't mean that we can guarantee 100% safety 24/7 all the time. We're not God. However, what it does mean is that we are super intentional about everything that we build within HERide, and safety is at the forefront of every conversation that we have. So those are two big wins for us.
And I guess going back to you, Jill, DeVynne discussed like some of the challenges, like when going up against an Uber or Lyft, because they can scale quicker, they have the funding. Like, what are the challenges? I guess of like raising money as like Black female founders. Like I had one guest on a previous episode, and we were talking about how like, and she's a Black woman herself too, and like only I guess like 2 to 3% of all private equity and venture capital funding goes to Black women, Black people in general, and so probably an even smaller percentage goes to Black women. It's probably like in the fraction of a percent.
Yeah.
So what are the battles of that? Like trying to trying to grow, obviously a beautiful mission, but being able to truly scale and get the funding behind that. What are those battles like?
Those battles just consist of a lot of patience that I had to learn about. I come from, again, entrepreneur background, but I come from a knowing a way around things. So
Yeah.
when I realized that, okay, people aren't gonna just give you $1 million for this idea, Jill, you're gonna have to like really earn it. So realize that, okay, bet we have to be seen. Cool. I'm in a city that loves about that. That's pretty much what the city is about being seen. So if I can create a community and create brand awareness to the point of the news is calling us, they want to know about us, then cool. I don't have to spend money on that. That's money I have to spend on marketing. Cool. We're going to worry about the next thing. Okay. We need money to get the app done. Well, I had a computer science degree, so I knew how to get this app built without having to spend $50,000 on it. And so I got the app built. I saved a lot of money on the development side of it. And so because of that, we were able to allocate money into other things. We raised money doing a family and friends round. That's usually what you do before you start your company, but I had to do it after we got on the news because, again, I just come from a different culture. People have to see it to believe it. And so once people saw it and they really believed it, then people really start to buy in. Now that we've been on the news, now that we've done press runs, okay, Jill, how else can you get free money? I apply for grants all the time. Between me and DeVynne, I don't know who applies more. I don't know if it's just me applying for them all and DeVynne sending me the links. We might have double applications out some of them, but we apply. Yeah, we apply for grants all day, all night. Now, those take time to come through and process. So you can't really depend on grant money, but you also have other money that comes in, which I got into last year, which was pitch competitions. I like to talk, I like to run my mouth, and I speak pretty well. So I decided okay, Jill, we got to figure out how to get this money. Started going to pitch competitions. I'm able to fly across the country pretty much with no restrictions. And so I'm able to even go to pitch competitions that aren't in the city of Atlanta. And compete in those, especially if if the qualifications or requirements are open to everyone. So that's what I do. So we'll win 1,000 here, 5,000 here, 10,000 here. And that's what's keeping us going. That's what's been keeping us going. That's what's keeping the engine running. And now we're at a point to where we really got to raise a good amount of capital if we really want to scale. But people are starting to realize that, and people are starting to reach out.
Pitch competitions. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Is that just where you go to like pitch in front of a bunch of investors and it's just you against however many other people? Like how is that set up?
Yeah, it's like it's a super competitive space. People, a lot of startup companies, small businesses, a lot of different big companies and corporations, they offer these pitch competitions. Of course, it's like, tax write-off, 5,000 here, 10,000 here. You got your judges that you have to pitch in front of, and there are guidelines. It's either a 30-second pitch, 60-second pitch. Sometimes they want to see 3 to 5 minutes. But that's based on the guidelines, and you have to go up there and you have to do it. And I realized that I shine in that area because I'm very good at explaining super technical things in a simple way. And I also I can stick to the rules. If you say 60 seconds, I'm going to wrap it up in 60 seconds. Um, and so with practice came perfection, and that's what we did. I worked on my speeches, worked on my pitches, did my pitches in front of some of my most critical friends, sent my pitches to DeVynne because what? DeVynne's the word wizard. And so like, having her review them and then just going through and practicing them and then implementing them. That's what he did. It worked out really well because I do realize that I have a pretty big personality. And so that tends to shine in pitch competitions.
What have you learned? You discussed like just kind of the simpler, the better, and all that. But I guess what else have you learned about like what takes like a successful pitch? Is it the value add in it? Like what is it exactly that you think? And this is for you, Jill, or DeVynne. Like what makes a successful pitch to get money?
You have to meet the guidelines, what they're asking. So make sure that you
Mhm.
actually answer the questions. You actually have to tell them what your ask is. It's like, hey, if the prize is $10,000, $5,000, what you're using that money for and why you're using it and why you need it needs to be in the pitch. And it needs to be kind of towards the end. I would say kind of wrap it up there and tell them why you need the money. And also at the beginning, you need to draw them in. You don't need to say anything that's like, I mean, some people are like the people that like are super like extreme and they say something outlandish to draw them in. But you're just like, if your story is good and you have a really good story, make sure that you tell a story that is good enough to draw the judges in. Who you're pitching to is the judges. You're not pitching to the audience. You're pitching
Mm,
to those three people, and you need to
yeah,
know what it is that they do because they give you all the information prior to. So if you know what all those three people do, what their backgrounds are, you can formulate a pitch to where they can relate to what it is that you're saying. And so
okay,
that's what makes a perfect pitch. I played sports, and so I do a lot of sports analogies in my pitches. And most of the judges, they can relate to sports, whatever sport it is I'm talking about. So it's like, okay, they get me. I'm not losing them in the first 10 seconds with big words.
got
Yeah.
it. Okay, that
I
makes
would
sense.
say to add to that storyline. So you want to have a good storyline, but also you want to, there's something called heart hit heart when you're trying to convey something to someone. And so it really is like being able to lean into emotions, but also logic as well too. And I think Jill does a really great job of being able to lean into both while also, like she mentioned, using analogies that are like everyday situations. Because if someone can see how you can apply what it is you're talking about or the business that you have, it makes it easier for them to want to be able to help and support. And, so just wanted to add that there, but she does an awesome job pitching. Use of late. Yeah.
For sure. And and this question is for both of you, but I want to stick with you, DeVynne. And this is kind of more broadly about entrepreneurship in general for those who look like both of you, like young Black women, just underrepresented people. Like what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give to a young aspiring entrepreneur about what it takes to succeed, and to kind of stay in it for the long haul?
Yeah. It would be know your passion or learn your passion. I think a lot of people jump into entrepreneurship with like the thought process of like, this is going to be easy. I'm going to make me some money, not understanding like all the hard work that goes behind it. You can like something, but not be passionate about it. You can be good at something and also not be passionate about it. So once you align with your passion and you understand how, you know, um, what truly are your skill sets, your gifts, right? You know how to apply them. And then you are more prone to like stick with it. You keep showing up. So it would definitely be like, know what you're passionate about. Then also just keep showing up because you never know what door may open up on the other side of your hard work. And then if I had to throw in a third, piece of advice, it would just be learning when to say no. So like understanding your brink, understanding when you're like, hey, I've met my max, and I can't, I have to say no because if I don't say no to this, I'll have to say something, no to something else that also matters to me. So those would be the three pieces of advice I would give to anyone who's looking to be an entrepreneur, especially Black women.
Okay. And how about you, Jill?
For me, it would have to be don't quit your day job. If you're working full time, keep your job. Me and DeVynne still both work full time. It's not looked at as favorable, in the startup world, but DeVynne has a family to take care of. I have bills to take care of, and also our our app is bootstrap, meaning that I use my personal funds in order to pay for things. And so if I don't have a job, then how are we going to do that?
Yeah.
I would have to spend time driving as a driver, and that's taking away from me being founder CEO. So keeping your day job, I would tell people to do that for as long as possible, until your business is funding, can take care of you and your living expenses. Um, Another thing I would tell people would be to prioritize self-care. Been doing a lot more of that this year. Just doing things that make me feel better. Just participating in things that make me feel good. I enjoy skating. That's something that I'm doing where I don't feel like I have to be thinking of a business plan or anything like that. Or talking about business. I enjoy flying my drone. That's super relaxing to me. It's also a hobby I refuse to monetize because I actually enjoy it. So like continuing to do things that you don't have to like think about monetizing and starting a business from it, like going to concerts, doing like those things. I like to collect vinyl records, like really spending time doing the things that you enjoy doing outside of the building, and at least allocating like one day out of the week to do that. Cause a lot of people will say like, oh, I'm doing this, I don't sleep and all this other stuff. And I even talk about that on my social media, how I don't really sleep that much, but it's because my body just doesn't need it. I'm someone who's
Yeah.
never slept in. Even as a teenager, I only slept like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours. So I can operate differently than other people, but understanding like what your limits are as a person, and then like really taking care of yourself, because you can really lose yourself in this entrepreneurial money race. A lot of people are just chasing money and not chasing their passion. So like how DeVynne said, make sure that you're actually passionate about what it is that you're doing.
Awesome. This has been great. Ladies, I guess where can people go to learn more about not only both of you, but also to particularly women to use HERide and for those in Atlanta or their surrounding areas?
So you can go to our website, which is www.heride, that's one RHERIDE.com. On there, you can learn more about us. If there's an opportunity to donate there as well too, and even sign up as a driver if you're in the Atlanta area. We're on all things social at Get Her Ride. My personal social is DeVynne, that's DeVynne.STARKS. And I'll turn it over to Jill.
Yeah, personal on Instagram is the real Bill Gates. So like Bill
Bill
Gates.
Gates. Oh, wow. I love it.
Yeah. One of my homies gave me that nickname. I thought it was so dope. I told him I owe him for that.
Yeah.
But yes, Jill Gates, the real Jill Gates on IG, and then it's Jill B Gates on Twitter. So like Junie B Jones, Jill B Gates on Twitter.
Okay.
Now,
And yeah, no, that's dope. And before I ask my final question, I have to ask this, Jill. We were discussing beforehand about your
Oh
about
yeah.
basketball, and you said you kind of had an opportunity to join the Harlem Globetrotters after playing pro ball. Was it like what? Can you
Oh
explain
no, so that
kind of
was
how all
after
that
college.
worked? Oh, that was after college. Okay, so
Yeah.
how exactly did that opportunity come about? Because everyone knows who the Harlem Globetrotters are. That's so unique and dope.
All right, so I graduated college 2015. This is like right
Okay.
around when social media is really starting to pop, right? So I dunked for the first time on Instagram, and I actually tagged, I think, the Harlem Globetrotters in a post. And so one of the scouts actually reached out to me. And so they reached out to me through DM, and then they emailed me and they said, "Hey, we got your video. We saw it. We would love to have you come for a tryout." Now the tryout wasn't until next year. And at the time I was in Virginia working. I was actually trying to get into my field. So I was doing a software developer internship to try to get into, get a paid software developer job. Yeah, they called me that weekend, and I called my mom and I was like, yeah, so I know you kind of wanted me to do this internship thing. I was like, but I got an interesting opportunity. So I told her about it, and she was just like, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You might as well come home. So I came home that weekend and started training for an entire year. Ended up getting sick 2 months before my tryout.
Oh
Got
man.
diagnosed with a autoimmune disease, this rare autoimmune disease, which the symptoms of it were similar to like mono. So I'm doing like 2 to 3 workouts a day, And all of a sudden, I don't have any energy to do anything. Like I'm barely making it through the day. Like I'm barely making it through work. And at the time, I was actually working 2 jobs and doing all of this. So I'm like, when I noticed that my energy levels were like cut that short, I was like, something's wrong, something's not right. Like, so I went to the doctor. They thought I had mono, ended up being an autoimmune disease. And so my spirits were crushed because all of the progress that I was making with the training and all the other stuff was really cut short because I couldn't do anything. I could barely get out of bed for a month, almost 6 weeks. Like I was barely all I could do was go to work and go home. And
Mm.
so when they finally, like when those symptoms finally died down, it was about a week or 2 before my tryout. Still went to the tryout because I'm just prideful like that.
Yeah.
The only thing that they wanted me to do as a Harlem Globetrotter was dunk. And so I was going to be signed on as the first woman to dunk for them. They already told me how it was going to work. I was going to have to do it like 3 times a week. But the purpose of me coming to the trial was just to see if I could actually dunk and to see what my progress looked like because I would have had to perform it like 2 to 3 times a week. They needed to make sure that I was like actually dunking for real, not barely doing it. So because I was still kind of barely there, I didn't make it, make the team. And so I was like, dang, lost that opportunity, but I still had like the hunger. So there was some agents that reached out to me because they knew about the Globetrotter thing. And so a guy helped me get over to Morocco. But I only played a year and a half of basketball, and I played Division II basketball. I also wasn't no offensive threat like Caitlin Clark. So I think like what 8 points a game or something like that. But I was extremely influential on the team to the point like we won our conference championship. It was the first one they won in 20 years. So like I played a huge role on the team, but I wasn't an offensive star. And when you talk about pro basketball, it's offensive. Like you have to be able to score, especially if you're playing overseas. So I just didn't have the experience. I didn't have the money to train, to pay trainers. I didn't have none of the time to do it. And so I look back and I'm like, Jill, you got a degree in computer science. Go get a job. Go get a job. Go get a job. So I came home, got with a temp agency, and then got into HERide and things,
Yeah.
and
It all worked out.
yeah, it ended up
Yeah.
working out for the best. But that was a crazy experience. I tell DeVynne all the time. I was like, I've lived like 4 lives in my 20s. Like I was 4 different people in my 20s.
No, that's crazy. No, that's dope experience. Something you could continue to tell, like, for years. And again, it led you just kind of what you're doing now with DeVynne, and, it all worked out. But last question for you ladies, and then I'll let you get out of here. And DeVynne, I'll start with you. What is, this is kind of broad, right? But what is one thing you think that people should do more of that can get them closer to reaching their pinnacle, to like maximizing their potential?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good question. I think that people probably can do more of like trusting themselves and like their intuition. I think a lot of people second guess themselves. Like we think about something, we know it's right, but then we're like, well, I don't know how to execute. I don't know how to start. And I think a lot of times if you just start, everything else will fall into place. I think about so many times how people are like, oh, I had this idea, but like I didn't do it. And they may have told me about it, right? And then I'll mess with them, like 2 years down the line, I'm like, look what this person is doing. It's exactly what you told me. It's, exactly how you wanted to execute. So I think a lot of times it might be us, being prideful as well too, not really wanting to show up and be judged for how we show up because we don't have it all together. We don't have the website. We don't have the marketing team, and really just start, because really the right people always find you, especially when you're operating within your season. And if you miss that mark and opportunity to, go ahead and jump and go after whatever like in your heart to do, someone else will do it, because no idea is like so fantastic that no one else will think of something similar to it. Really all about timing. So that would definitely be my advice.
I love it. And Jill, what about you?
I would tell people that I think people should be more intentional. It's really piggybacking off of what DeVynne said, is act like if you say that you want to do this, you want to do that. I see a lot of it on social media, and I tell people this all the time. I'm like, stop telling social media that, oh, I could have did this or I could have did that. You can still do it. Like I notice a lot of people in our generation, it's like just because you're 29 and 30, it's like, oh, I didn't finish school. You can go back, right? Like, you can go back at any time and finish your degree if you really want to finish your degree. But we look at social media and it's like, oh, people gonna judge me about, like, who cares? Like, you also don't have to post about it. Like, you could just not tell anybody, and just do it and get it done. But be more intentional. And I wanna talk about just in business, for Black people, when we talk about starting businesses and companies, we need to be more intentional on starting scalable businesses. Ryan that owns the Gathering Spot talks about it a lot, like starting businesses that can actually scale. There's nothing wrong with having your hobbies, or not what people consider hobbies, but your sole proprietorship, I guess. Your sole proprietorship businesses, like your being a beautician or being a service provider where you have to do all the work. We need to look at the bigger picture of those industries. So if you're someone who is a successful hairstylist, you need to look into opening up your own salon suites so that you can fill your salon suites with hairstylists so you don't have to do hair anymore. Those type of things, just scaling on a broader scale so that we're not limiting ourselves. There's nothing wrong with opening restaurants, but let's be like the other guys and buy franchises. I saw a story on a group of guys that own like 21 Ben and Jerry's. That's crazy. Like, that's super dope. Like, those are the stories that need to be highlighted, especially on our blogs. But yeah, that's what be more intentional about scaling out, building those scalable businesses, and really tapping into those industries that we complain that we don't own or have access to. We can get into them. We just gotta start a business and get into it. Do the boring stuff too. But yeah, I can go on and on.
No, that's a bar. That's a bar. And what both of you guys,
A proud plumber.
Yeah, be a proud plumber, electrician. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to sound like I'll be 32 this year, and I'm like, okay, I am getting old or whatever like that. But I'm like, dang, like, we don't need everybody to rap. Like, we do need electricians. Like,
please say that louder. Please say that louder.
I'm talking about buying a house and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm gonna need a handyman, and I don't know nobody my age that can do that type of work. Like, what's going on? Like,
It really is.
we need more people more individuals that are more skilled in that nature, and then can also build a scalable business from it. Stop focusing on entertainment and music so much.
Yep. No, I love it. And everything both of you said is a big reason why I started this platform, just to show excellence in areas outside of sports and entertainment with Black people, because we can do so much. We just have to put our mind to it. So I love all the gems both of you ladies dropped, and for those of you listening, all the information they mentioned about HERide will be in the show notes. So please be sure to tap in with them. And if you're in Atlanta and if you're a woman, please use their service. Sounds like they're on the up and up. So definitely wish both you ladies the best. And for those of you listening, thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate all the support and the love. This wouldn't be possible without you all. And you're probably listening to this on YouTube, but the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts, and soon to come on Apple Podcasts. And you could find the show on social media, on Instagram and TikTok at Pinnacle Code. So, but until next time, I will see you guys soon. Thank you. Appreciate you, Jill and DeVynne.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.